very significant change in agriculture is taking place. The farmer has to be now more of a countryside manager and less of a food producer. In 1998, Manor Farm became a whole farm experiment. Professor David Bellamy issued us a challenge: maintain farm profits and increase biodiversity. We met the challenge successfully, but the environmental work and the research still goes on.
Welcome to Jordan's Cereals. We'd like to take the chance to explain a little bit about conservation grade farming.
We're in North Yorkshire, but we could be on any one of the Jordan's conservation grade farms. Jordan's produce food that is good for you, but it's also good for wildlife. All the Jordan growers have to meet an environmental standard that through the research guarantees that we increase the wildlife on the farm. We're in a meadow which is now a blaze of colour. It was sown a couple of years ago, which shows what farmers really can do if they're asked to deliver wildlife on a farm. We've got about 16 or 18 flowers in here, 8 or 9 grasses. Many years ago, when there were more wildflowers, these meadows, if you like, happened naturally. Naturally in the sense that nature created them from seeds around and about. We've lost about 97% of our meadows, and what we're able to do with the farming skills now is to create these meadows by relocating the skills farmers already have to create this, if you like, tapestry, this haven for wildlife. The ability to provide pollen and nectar, which I believe really is the big missing link on farmland, is where this huge lift in wildlife is coming from.
We grow cereals for Jordan's as a conservation grade, where we commit to put 10% of our land into habitats of various types, spread throughout the entire estate to increase the biodiversity on the estate, and for which we then get a premium for the cereals we sell to Jordan's.
What we've been told by nutritionists is that the nutrition is actually in the whole grain. You don't want to refine it. As flour millers, we used to take off the husk and make white flour or 100% extraction, whole wheat flour. Nowadays, of course, the trend is to do the whole wheat, whole grains version, which is what we've pretty much been doing for most of those 150 years. We want to refine the product as little as possible. We want to grow it as simply as possible. We want to use inputs that aren't going to upset the grain or spoil it. And that's really what conservation grade is all about for us.
Behind me, the farmer produces food. In front of me, he produces wildlife. What he's done, he's sown a mixture so that wildlife and food production sit together in perfect harmony. Our research has shown that areas such as this have increased the wildlife 5 times.
And part of the commitment I've made is to go on training every year to keep us all up to speed with what's going on, developments with types of habitat, and generally keeping in touch.
As soon as we realised that it was about not refining and not over-processing the food, we worked back down the food chain, and we now work with farmers, around 80 at the moment, who basically they are farming for wildlife, and that very much fits into our mentality, our vision, if you like. We feel that we can, as a small producer, be helping the British farmer, who we've been working with for a long time anyway.
To achieve conservation grade, we have to trial lots of experiments to see what works and what doesn't work. This particular experiment is a mixture of grasses and wildflowers. We've also got weeds in here. This minimises the farmer acceptability and minimises the wildlife gain. What we now need to do is to apply management skills to make biodiversity much more reliable and therefore successful.
Well, we took it a stage further here, and this is what I like to call my sandwich margin. And the flowers, the wildflowers we've sown in here, also good for wildlife.
I didn't tell you could do this.
No. Sometimes you have good ideas without you, Marek.
You got the best of both in one place.
What you find is that you get bumblebees in different parts of the margin at different times, and then the bumblebee can complete its whole life cycle within this 20-metre margin. It's got everything it needs.
The tussocky at the back we can see.
The tusky at the back and the tusky against the crop.
Tusky against the crop. Hell's bells.
There's a good business reason, there's a good premium. In today's farming environment, we're all trying to be more green, and all the payments that are taken away in modulation, there's a chance to recoup those in stewardship. All these margins, etc., all help us to get into stewardship, either entry level or high level.
Upton's unique. It provides for Jordans both the food Jordans need and the wildlife Jordans demand. Conservation grade has been in operation for at least 20 years, but over the last 2 or 3 years, with the changes in government direction for farmers, Jordans have upped their game. Through science, through research, through farmer training, Jordans have developed a unique farming and wildlife protocol. The 7 elements of conservation grade farming are: set 10% of your land aside for wildlife habitats, membership of an assured food standard scheme, create a farm environmental plan, attend the training courses, comply with the conservation grade production standards, pass an annual verification, and be a member of the Guild of Conservation Grade Growers. What I want to do is introduce you to some of the plants that we've got. This one's yellow rattle. When that's mature and makes that rattly noise, many of the old farmers used to use that as a timing for when hay was ready to make. Another one that's nice is yarrow. Yarrow can be pink, like that one, or further over we've got a white one. They're very useful for many of the insects with shallow tongues that obviously can't get into deeper flowers. Another one there is called muskmallow. That's a lovely plant in the evening with the sun at the back of that. That is absolutely wonderful. Again, all these various flowers make up this very rich tapestry. When the sun sets on this field, this grass literally goes golden. It's as if somebody sprayed it. It's a lovely grass. Very fluffy, tall grass. There's another one up here. They give the whole meadow depth.
We think it's got to happen in a much bigger way. I mean, Jordans is a small player, but we think, basically a lot of British food producers around the world have got to sort of reconnect with the countryside and with farmers. I don't think you can ever say you got it completely right, but I think, sort of hand on heart, we've done a pretty good job working with farmers and scientists and environmentalists and conservationists to come up with a scheme which most definitely does help wildlife. We've got the figures to prove that, and I think, encouragingly nowadays, we're finding there's an awful lot of consumers out there who like buying these sort of products because they feel they are helping.
I've always had an interest in the countryside, and with my job as a farm advisor, I was fascinated by the opportunity of linking profitable farming with practical conservation, so the two to me became as one. Biodiversity is important because we don't fully understand the implications of the species interacting with each other, the risk of losing biodiversity could mean we lose certain things forever. A field margin is the area between the bottom of the hedge and where the farming operation starts. We're on the edge of a field of winter barley. Often what we find in this situation is wild oats, cleavers, and the very invasive brome. This might well be a worst case scenario, but often the farmers have a major weed problem. They farm to the edge, but the yield doesn't start till much further out. We've now travelled 10 paces from where the farmer started drilling and spending money. I'm now at the beginning of where he will start to earn a profit. Everything behind me has been a direct loss to the farm operation. The idea of turning this annual weed problem into a perennial mixture of grasses and flowers, such that it would last for many, many years, means the farmer would be reducing pesticides because he wouldn't be farming into the very dirty areas that could well be unprofitable. We're in a sterile strip situation now, where the farmer has used the sterile strip to stop the weeds spreading from the hedge base into this crop of oilseed rape. The gap that this creates allows the annuals to jump the gap. Therefore, the agricultural result is extremely poor, but there are much better alternatives. This is the farmer's enemy, sterile brome. This invasive annual moves from the field edge into the crop. Behind us is a mixture of grasses and wildflowers that are perennial. Perennials create a barrier that the annuals can't cross or survive in. I really do believe that this is the balance between profitable farming and practical conservation. We started researching into field margins 10, 12 years ago, and for 2 or 3 years we got very poor results. But until we decided that the margin of grasses and flowers was a crop, and we developed the skills needed for that crop to succeed, we've made little progress. Now what we're looking at is the result of 10, 12 years of research leading up to a successful conclusion where the species of flowers, grasses, insects and birds all work together in a farmed framework. This experiment is now 2 years old and is looking at different levels of fertility. This is low in fertility and now in its second year has been dominated by non-invasive perennials with all the grasses and the flowers, the insects that go with them. This plot is high in fertility, and because of the high level of fertility, we've totally swamped out all the benefits of wild grasses, flowers, and the insects that go with it. The exciting thing about margins, and certainly something that farmers respond to as, if you like, vegetation managers, is that there is no right margin for all situations. The margin has to be the right mix, in the right place, and has to take into account of all sorts of plants and animals that would live in that margin. Food production is no longer, according to the government, the farmer's primary aim. What we are charged with is the increasing of biodiversity on our farmland, and the ability to create and manage successfully a herb-rich strip increases the biodiversity many, many-fold. I think what we're going to see through the government directions that are increasingly coming out is the need for farmers to become more aware of environmental issues, and farmers will be charged, I believe, fairly soon with increasing biodiversity. If we can find for farmers agricultural benefits that are affordable within their business relating to margins, then I think a lot of farmers that have said no or I'm not sure will start to take margins a lot more seriously. The role of the farmer is changing. He now must link profitable farming with practical conservation. The benefits of a sown margin can be heard and seen. This really is the buzz of biodiversity. What is known well to farmers is the destructive nature of wild oats. He sprayed them in this crop and removed them, therefore protecting the crop and his investment. This sown mixture of grasses and flowers, unsprayed, will be very unsuccessful as an opportunity for farming and conservation to come together. What we've used here are agricultural skills in the sense that he's used a herbicide to remove the weeds with safety to the sown species. This gives his wildflower crop every chance of success. I'm now in a 6-metre strip. It's extremely rich in both plants, animals and insects. It's next to a watercourse, therefore it protects the watercourse. Imagine the environmental opportunity such an area presents. This really is where farming and conservation work hand in hand. It satisfies many of the new government initiatives, it's appealing to the public, and it acts as a farming weed barrier. This perhaps really is the opportunity where biodiversity on farmland really begins. Let me put it another way. We as a company have 150 agronomists covering approximately 25% of this country's farmed land. If every one of our farmers was to plant a 2-metre herb-rich strip, we would create a new 43,000 hectare nature reserve. This really would bring the buzz of biodiversity back into farming. I really think that this is an opportunity where profitable farming and practical conservation come together to make a massive environmental difference in our countryside.
A cheese butty and a pint of best bitter. And what better time and place to eat me ploughmans than here on a farm that produces much of the ingredients, malting barley and wheat. And it's been a difficult harvest, but now it's safely gathered in.